the heart of the Mediterranean, there exists a special world where bears and eagles live free among the vestiges of a distant past. It is a veritable treasure trove of biodiversity that, from the Alps to the islands facing Africa, is home to riches of inestimable value. Thousands of species of plants and animals, including the continent's fiercest predators. This is Italy. Here, among the art and the history, a wild heart beats. Now the wolves are resting. The snow is merely an extra blanket on their soft fur. They wait for it to stop snowing, and for life, that which has survived, to resume its normal rhythms. This is one of 5 packs of wolves that live in the Monte Pollino range in southern Italy, between Calabria and Lucania. The land of the wolves, from the Greek Lycos. It has offered refuge and protection to entire families of wolves in its impenetrable forests and inaccessible canyons. Thanks to the wilderness of the Lucania, Italy, despite all its great cities and many small villages, even on the mountaintops, is still home to the largest population of wolves in Western Europe. The wolves are hungry. They prepare for their nocturnal hunt. It could be the turn of a red deer, one of the deer that live wild in the park after being reintroduced after long centuries of absence to gradually recreate the food chain. Deer are in trouble. They proceed with some difficulty, sinking up to their bellies in a line, one after the other. They are trying to reach the woods, where the snow may not be as deep and there are some twigs to eat. But not all of them make it. One is left behind, cut off from the group in the bed of a stream, its legs submerged in the icy water. A wall of snow prevents it from joining its companions, who look at it as if waiting for it, but then move on. Something is wrong, and it is left alone, but its problem is not loneliness or the cold. There are wolves around. They have been here for days, knowing that deer caught in the stream make easy prey. They move with great agility and speed, their wide paws preventing them from sinking into the snow. To bring down a deer, wolves must work as a team. A solitary animal would never be able to get the better of such a large creature. But there are a lot of wolves. They are well organized, and they make the rules in these mountains. it has stopped snowing. The griffon vultures have spotted the carcass from above, thanks to their excellent eyesight. During a snowstorm, the deer population in the national park can decrease by 10%. By day, wolves prefer to stay far away at the top of the hill. They will come down to eat at night. Little remains of the deer. Other animals take advantage of the carcass the wolves have left. The crows can fly away at the first sign of danger, but others have to eat with one eye looking over their shoulder. A fox caught stealing the leftovers of a pack's kill would have no chance. The wolves might decide to spare it, but often would not. It would be one less mouth to feed in these mountains. In the evening, the Pollino pack defines the invisible borders of its hunting territory, marked with odorous excrement. Their melancholy concerto of howling has more or less the same meaning as the nightingale's song. This is our territory, and woe to those who dare enter. Pollino, between Lucania and Basilicata, is the largest national park in Italy. This mountain, which reaches an altitude of 2,200 meters above sea level, is home to some very special plants and animals, some remaining from the time of the glaciers, some related to those of the Balkan Peninsula. On the plateau that stretches beneath the main summit are small pools of clear water inhabited by a particular amphibian fauna, like the native Apennine fire-bellied toad. The vivid colouring of this small toad indicates that its skin is covered with a toxic mucus that could kill any predator that imprudently tried to sink its teeth into it. The woodpeckers have almost finished creating their nest. A few finishing touches, and everything will be fine. They chose a robust, straight trunk and opened a gap in its fibres with their strong beaks. The black woodpecker is one of the most typical inhabitants of the Pollino National Park. It is a northern European species, and its presence in these Mediterranean mountains is a reminder of the Ice Age. No one knows exactly how many wolves live in this part of the Apennines, but this is certainly one of the areas conservation biologists regard as a source of wolves. A place that has always produced and continues to produce wolves. In the past, wolves were hunted in these mountains and throughout Italy, whenever and by whatever means, because wolves ate whatever man offered them, rubbish or livestock. Red deer had not been reintroduced. There were very few roe deer, and wild boars were practically unknown. So the wolves ate sheep. If it hadn't been for the sheep, the wolves would not have survived until the present day. This led to conflict with shepherds and their dogs, in a continuous game of cat and mouse between these two great predators. Men and wolves, bitter enemies since time immemorial, were engaged in a fight with no holds barred. On one side were snares, traps and rifles. On the other, an instinctive caution and an almost incredible ability to evade the enemy and hide. The job of bounty hunter of wolves paid quite well here in the Apennine Mountains. In order to claim your money, you had to hand over the tail or 2 ears of every specimen killed. Thousands of wolves met their end this way. Little by little, men reduced the areas in which the packs could roam. By the 1970s, there were less than 100 wolves in the whole of the Italian peninsula. Italy was about to lose its wolves, just like Great Britain, Germany, France, Austria and Switzerland many decades earlier. Lucania still had a couple of families, thanks to the inaccessibility of its rocky gorges, crossed by gushing streams and clothed in Mediterranean maquis that in higher altitudes gives way to beech woods. There are few houses, few roads. During the years of persecution, wolves lived here in hiding, moving undercover behind enemy lines. Nevertheless, their days were numbered. The persecution was fierce, and to guns and traps was added poison, which struck down the animals without them even being aware of it. A small amount placed in a carcass was enough to slaughter the wild creatures. Fortunately, this carcass has not been poisoned and will still fill many more hungry stomachs. A fox has come across the carcass, but can't really take full advantage of its find. Behind the trees, something is watching. Motionless, hidden along the trees and rocks, it assesses the situation. It decides that the situation is safe. It's a wolf. It's thanks to such prudence that this animal is still living free here in the 21st century, in a highly populated, industrialized country in the heart of Europe, like Italy. The fox remains close to the carcass. As long as the wolf is alone, it can easily escape. It is crafty and rapid. Now the situation becomes more complicated. Another wolf has arrived. And then another. Now there are 3 of them. The little pack is complete. The fox better make itself scarce. Perhaps it wasn't the wolves that killed the horse, which could have died from an accident or from some illness, but they will no doubt be blamed, and there is no appeal or defence. But they don't really care. This large carcass will feed them for days and keep them far away from people whom they have no wish to encounter. These animals are in perfect condition and have formidable jaws. Strong teeth pierce the horse's hide and strip the meat off. One of the three is an alpha male, another an alpha female, and the third, the one with the tail between its legs, is a beta wolf, the lowest in the hierarchy of this small pack, but even he can eat his fill. Satiated, the wolves begin to leave. The damp grass is perfect for cleaning themselves and for leaving their scent and staking their claim to this great territory. They'll be back tomorrow and the day after, until there is nothing left of the horse but bones, picked clean. The dogs find the remains of the horse eaten by the wolves. There are 3 of them, and they feel pretty safe. A single dog would never steal food from a pack of wolves, but there is safety in numbers, and 3 large dogs are a challenge for a pack of wolves that are probably secretly watching their hated cousins approaching their food. At the end of the last century, the tide turned, and for the wild predators of the Apennines, the situation began to change for a number of reasons. First of all, the depopulation of mountainous areas, which have become increasingly deserted and silent. No more buzzing chainsaws, talking shepherds, or barking dogs. People moved to the cities in search of work and a more comfortable life. Depopulation, which gave some peace to the last remaining wolves, was followed by an absolute ban on hunting, obtained by the WWF through campaigns to raise awareness among the public and authorities. They explained that the wolf is not a bad animal, but a key element in maintaining ecological balance. Then, after a while, the wolves' natural prey returned. Large wild herbivores repopulated the new national parks, and the ecological network and food chain was restored. The wolves regained their role as wild predators of natural prey, and the Pollino pack increased in size. Griffon vultures depend on wolves because they cannot kill as much as a mouse and must take advantage of the carcasses of animals slaughtered by the 4-legged killers. They make their nests on rocky walls. The young, despite being almost fully grown and able to fly alongside their parents, don't hesitate to demand food, beating their wings and squawking like huge chicks. They were also at risk of disappearing from these mountains because of poaching and of shortage of food due to the decline in wolf numbers. A flock of cranes in the valley of the river Sangron, about 300 kilometers north of Pollino in the Abruzzo National Park in the heart of the Apennine mountain range. They have paused during their migration to northern Europe and will just have time to rest their wings, but they cannot help taking the first steps of their mating dance. The river has flooded the meadows that have become a place of rest for many migrants. It's a very cold morning at the end of winter, and the wolves are warming themselves in the sun near the remains of their prey. The wolves of the Abruzzo National Park are less fearful than those of the Pollino. A truce has been in force in these mountains for almost a century, and the shepherds have accepted to coexist with these predators. The wolves occasionally attack their flocks, but less and less frequently because they now have plenty of wild prey. Here we seem to have been observing sights from the Siberian or Alaskan wilderness, but we are only an hour's drive from Rome. Each wolf pack usually consists of 6 or 7 specimens, a couple of parents and several generations of offspring. But the Sangro River pack is more numerous, 15 individuals. It is a veritable war machine, a shock force capable of taking down the largest deer and the strongest boar. They are so satiated that they allow a stray dog to pinch a bone. These white-haired dogs, Abruzzo Mastiffs, are the only ones who, when in a group, do not run away from the wolves, at least not immediately. And when they can, with the help of their human masters, they steal the wolves' prey. Dogs are a thorn in the side of wolves, but in a sense they have also helped them to survive, because dogs have guarded men's flocks, and hence the wolves' food. It moves quickly along the road. It feels safer beside people and cars. No one is surprised if a shepherd's dog runs along the road with a deer leg in its mouth. But if it were a wolf, there would be a crowd of photographers ready to snap it. In the Abruzzo National Park, the wolf population has now reached saturation point, and there is little room for new packs. The surplus wolves must migrate, otherwise they would be persecuted by the existing packs. Giulietta may have been a surplus wolf, or perhaps just an unusual specimen, full of initiative and a desire to see the world. For her, the solemn and austere mountains of Abruzzo were too confining, so one day she travelled north, along a path she had never followed before. She wandered through the mountains and crossed plains, walking hundreds of kilometers, driven by an almost mysterious force. The Furlo Pass in Le Marche, the forests of the Garfagnana in Tuscany, then Liguria. Every track, every trail was important to her. But she had to tread carefully to dodge snares and traps. Cautiously avoiding high-speed trains and cars on the roads, crossing raging rivers on bridges made by humans, keeping well away from houses and lights. Wolves walk a lot. In one night, they can cover as much as 80 kilometers between mountains and valleys, crossing roads and rivers. Giulietta's journey was followed thanks to the radio signal from the satellite transmitter she had been fitted with. She moved from one reserve to the other, staying for short or long periods in the quieter areas rich in prey. She met other packs of wolves, from which she was systematically expelled. It seemed that there was no place in the Apennines for her. She had to go even further north, to the ancient alpine regions from which wolves had been eliminated over a century ago. So Giulietta finally reached the entrance to the wolves' paradise, the Maritime Alps, the furthest western range of the largest wilderness in Europe. Unspoilt mountains, streams and small lakes with clear waters. Shady, quiet woods, and above all, lots and lots of wild animals, but no wolves. Here, bounty hunters killed wolves methodically and ferociously, wiping out the species. With no predators, herbivorous animals have become very numerous, sometimes so numerous that they damage the vegetation. It is the courtship season for the black grouse. Each year in the spring, they gather in this secret corner of the mountain, sing and display their beautiful plumage to attract females. Wolves do not hunt grouse. Too much work for too little flesh. They also avoid wasting time on marmots, which are always ready to take refuge in a deep underground den. Wolves have much more rewarding prey to choose from. Red deer, roe deer, chamois, and ibex. There are also many unattended grazing animals. In these mountains there are no guard dogs. For many centuries before the wolf returned, the flocks and herds didn't need protecting. Now the situation has changed. Excrement on the path has attracted a swarm of blue butterflies in search of liquids and mineral salts. For researchers, wolf excrement is a valuable source of information about not only what it has eaten, but also the animal's genetic identikit based on DNA reconstruction. They have discovered that only some of the wolves that populate the Alps are from the Apennines, like Giulietta. There are also many that originated in Eastern Europe. Giulietta, driven by an irresistible urge, continued to eat up the miles. Very cautiously, she moved only within the Italian borders, where the wolf is particularly well protected. further and further eastward. So she arrived at the gates of Verona in the Lesini Mountains, a new area for her, where people spoke a different dialect from the one with which she was familiar in Abruzzo. Giulietta would soon have left Lessinia to continue her journey, but there was an immigrant. A magnificent wolf of Slavic origin that had entered Italy clandestinely a few weeks earlier. This was her Romeo. It was love at first sight, crowned by the birth of their cubs. Giulietta and her companion's den is in a remote corner of the mountains, where the sun comes early in the morning to warm them on colder days. There are no bears or lynx in its immediate vicinity. It is a quiet area, suitable for the cubs' first steps. The cubs are as naughty as puppies, impatient to go running through the fields and woods, and the adults go crazy trying to keep up with them. They are also very hungry, and their parents and older siblings systematically explore their territory in search of prey and carcasses. Even the body of a horse, a little past its sell-by date, helps feed them. But if they are patient, they might be able to get a deer. It is the mating season, and the deer are very distracted. Males ignore their long-term enemies and dedicate their time to getting in shape to compete with other males. A mud bath is the best way to remove parasites from their fur and make a bit of a show to warm up in anticipation of the duels that take place, especially at sunset, and are preceded by a concerto of loud bellowing. This deer is very tired and is now limping. It may not survive the night. Attentive eyes are watching it. More cubs arrived during the following years, leading to the formation of a real pack that decided to settle in this outpost of the Alps overlooking the Venetian plain. The first nucleus of a wolf population that is now in contact with that of the Balkans, and through it, with all the wolves in Eastern Europe and even Asia, without interruption. The wolf has returned to its realm, but has to deal with other tenants. Bears are growing in number. They are mainly vegetarian, but there is bad blood between them and wolves. Bears are stronger than wolves, but mothers are always apprehensive about their cubs. It is different, however, when it comes to the other great carnivore of the European forests. There is no love lost between wolves and the lynx. The mother lynx has chosen a sunny spot that receives the first and last rays of the sun. She and her kittens need to stay warm and dry. In this, they are like all cats. The kittens want to play and explore the woods that are their home. These hunters never stray far from the trees, where they can climb to escape their enemies, and this keeps them safe from wolves. After Giulietta, many other wolves reached this area. Now, there are around 200 in the Italian Alps. Wolves now mainly hunt deer and wild boar, and their impact on domestic livestock diminishes year by year. But it still happens, despite the fact that farmers have been supplied with electrified enclosures to protect livestock at night, and have specifically selected Abruzzo sheepdogs skilled at protecting flocks. The hostility towards these animals, now considered too numerous, is very strong in the Alps. The Italian government has launched a species management plan, which stipulates that 5% of the entire Italian wolf population can be killed every year. In other words, at least 100 wolves could be legally killed. The wolf, unaware of the battle being fought in the corridors of ministries and universities, goes on his way. Today, top of the menu is wild boar, and this has brought it into very close contact with people. Not all wolves have reached the Alps or remained in the heart of the Apennines. Many have embarked on risky journeys to areas inhabited by people. Here, the environment does not always offer adequate shelter. The Murgia Plateau, the Tuscan Maremma, and the Tolfa Mountains are more or less recently colonized areas where wolves have a difficult life. In these areas, men go hunting for wild boar, so in the autumn and winter, even the most remote forests and gorges are invaded by beaters, accompanied by packs of dogs. But wolves are wolves. They survive even in hunting reserves. Here the wolves have met other animals. This time they are not prey, but are close relatives. Feral dogs. They are dogs of all breeds, often crossed to give birth to a variety of crossbreeds with very different appearances. Feral dogs live like wolves in packs, but they don't stray far from inhabited areas. And they do a lot of damage to livestock, for which wild wolves are unjustly blamed. Dogs try to avoid wolves. They have everything to lose in a clash. If a dog lives in an area inhabited by a pack of wolves, its days, if not its hours, are numbered. Only a bitch in heat can survive in an area populated by wolves. Wolves do not have much sympathy for dogs, but they cannot resist the charms of a female willing to accept their advances. If a female is in heat, it could trigger the interest of a male wolf that could spare her and mate with her. In spite of its very different appearance, the DNA of this Abruzzo Mastiff is almost identical to that of a wolf, and a mixed couple would have living, fertile puppies, which only an expert eye could distinguish from a real wolf. This is how the hybrid wolf was born. A new super predator. A photo trap has caught a hybrid at night, eating a roe deer. Hybrid wolves have a dark coat, a long tail that often curls upward, and pointed ears. Hybrids live in marginal areas, where there are fewer wolves and more stray and feral dogs, so mixed marriages are more likely. These animals are not very afraid of people. They are familiar with their habits and the pens they have built for sheep and cows. But wolves, real ones, always have an ace up their sleeve, and this time it pushes them into the heart of their hated enemy's world. In the hills, very near the motorway and some houses, night is falling. Wolves call to each other. There are more than one. It is a rendezvous, a communication between members of the same pack that keeps contact this way. These are real wolves. DNA analysis from samples of excrement leaves no doubt about that. It is a new population and very unusual, because this is not just any area. We are at the gates of Rome. The wolf has returned to the city of Romulus and Remus. 15 kilometers as the crow flies from the historic heart of the city and St. Peter's, a small population of wolves lives in a natural reserve for livestock farming in the wild, rich in woods and small ditches that carry water even in summer. It is squeezed between roads full of heavy traffic, but the wolves are fine here. No one threatens them, and there are many wild boar. It's like living close to a supermarket that is always open and well stocked. Who knows if in the future they will come into the city? For the moment, they stay there, near where their ancient ancestor nursed the man cubs who founded the capital of the ancient world. In the heart of the Mediterranean, there exists a special world where bears and eagles live free among the vestiges of a distant past. It is a veritable treasure trove of biodiversity that from the Alps to the islands facing Africa is home to riches of inestimable value. Thousands of species of plants and animals, including the continent's fiercest predators. This is Italy. Here, among the art and the history, a wild heart beats. A female bear nibbles at the grass. Unlike her alpine cousins, the Marsican brown bear is predominantly vegetarian, indeed herbivore. She is an expert on all kinds of wild grasses and has specific tastes. She is one of the last 12 fertile females of this small, threatened population, the only ones capable of having cubs. Today, roaming free in the small region of the Apennines, right in the heart of the Italian peninsula, lives one of the most important populations of brown bears in Europe. But no one can say how much longer they will survive. The Marsicano bear is the most threatened mammal in Italy. The domain of this peaceful creature is shrinking every day, invaded by man. The primary area for bears is the national park of Abruzzo, Lazio and Molise, but they also move out into the nearby parks of Maiella, Velino Sirente and Monti Simbruini, as well as the state forests, which serve as green corridors joining the protected areas. protected area covers 50,000 hectares, the area of a small Italian region, to which are added 60,000 hectares of external protection. There are no fences, no gates. It is just an hour's drive from Rome, one of the largest and most chaotic cities in Europe. Just 120 kilometers of motorway make the difference between the noise of car horns, houses, people and traffic on the one hand, and silent beech forests, snow-capped mountains and, above all, large mammals on the other. The brown bear, the smallest of the European brown bears, but still a bear weighing 200 kilos. These large animals have survived not only because their environment is still harsh and difficult to access, but mainly because they are cunning, elusive, and often nocturnal. They are wild, free animals and may disappoint those who think that the national park is like a zoo and the animals pose to be admired and photographed. It occurs sometimes, obviously, but it is unusual and far from the norm. In the wild, bears eat just about anything, but they have a clear preference for fruit and grass. But without the presence of shepherds and farmers, food is now much more scarce than it once was in the Apennines. Most of this region has been inhabited for thousands of years, but the balance that regulates the life of man and animal has never been so disrupted until now. Modern times have changed things, and bears who need tranquility and space have been forced to keep their distance from the most populated and noisiest areas by retreating into the least accessible places. They move about mostly by night and try to stay clear of houses. But some have lost their traditional caution and have become more confident, taking an interest in human beings and their tempting products, such as honey, cheese, and chickens. It is necessary to stop bears from coming close to beehives, chicken coops, barns and pens. They risk winding up under a car or stumbling into a trap or even being shot. The bear Gemma some time ago came to take some chickens from the hen house in the village of Villalago. And all went well. A little less so for the chickens and the farmer, who found himself with a handful of feathers and a rush to repair the damage, reinforcing his defences with a simple but efficient structure of boards and nails. Tonight the bear wants to try again, but the men of the Forest Corps are ready to foil any incursion by the chicken thief. The forest rangers are alerted thanks to a radio signal emitted by a collar they put on the bear a year ago in order to better follow her movements. The bear is approaching. The dogs pick up her scent. But will a simple firecracker be enough to drive her away? This time all went well for the chickens, the men, and, in the end, for the bear as well, who needs to learn to keep her distance from human habitations. Our bear has gone back into the mountains, disillusioned after her attempt has been blocked by the forest rangers. Shy is proud. Ma, she is shy too. Her visit has only been postponed. Sooner or later she will return in search of something to eat. Every bear is registered, and many are equipped with radio collars. We know not only the age and sex of each Marsican bear, but also its family tree, thanks to DNA samples obtained from excrement or hairs collected by the park's researchers. Gemma, Stella, Reginella, Marina, Bernardo, and before them, Yoga and Sandrino. These are the names that have been given to the trusting bears by the men of Abruzzo in order to show that bears are not just wild animals. They are leading figures in the life of this land, a symbol of the mystery and beauty of nature which has joined man and beast for thousands of years. And yet, between 1971 and 2012, more than 100 bears were killed within the boundaries of the Marsica Mountains. A severe blow to the hopes for the survival of the species. "50 years ago, there were probably more than 100 of them. But today, there are more likely less than half of that." These deaths were caused not only by poachers, but also by mistakes made by hunters during wild boar hunts, and by poisons and traps set for feral dogs, wild boar, foxes and wolves. The buzzards have found something that interests them. They were attracted by the magpies and the carrion crow, which are real explorers, always very curious about everything that is happening in their world. The magpies were the first to spot that there is a carcass in the grass, a cheap meal, but they have to withdraw in the presence of the birds of prey, which are certainly better armed. 3 bears died, poisoned at the same time. An adult male, a young, and an adult female. It was a terrible loss. Gradually, autumn comes to the mountains of Abruzzo. The maples seem to burst into flame. Speckles of colour sweep across the slopes where the bellow of rutting deer rings out. The migratory birds have already departed. Someone has left their feathers behind. A wood pigeon. Who knows? Maybe it was a fox. One life is ended to allow for another. C'est la vie. The chamois are wearing their winter coats. The males mark the shrubs, leaving an odorous substance produced by glands at the base of the horns on the grass stems and junipers. They raise the mane of hair on their backs to make themselves look more imposing. They compete, but they do not use their horns. They don't even touch them. They run and run at breakneck speed up and down until their hearts are fit to burst. The one who can continue the longest wins. Three bears in a row on the slope, a rare sight. There is a female with a cub of about 2 years old who is still with her, and a male trying to reach the female who is walking rapidly away. He'd like to mate with her. For the moment, she's not in the least interested, but sooner or later, it will happen. The rangers patrol the areas most frequented by bears to offer them a little protection at a time when they are forced to come out into the open. They have to accumulate fat before the winter season that is now rapidly approaching and will force them to undergo long periods of fasting. Early autumn can still bring warm days, and high up there are still some buckthorn bushes laden with sweet fruit. For the bears, it is another chance to fill their stomachs before hibernation. Gemma Bear should wake up, but she has been observing radio silence. The signal emitted by her collar has not been picked up by the receiver. It is probably blocked by the mountains. What if she's in trouble? What if she's caught in a trap with her cubs? What has become of her? The area is scoured methodically, inch by inch, flying over the valley of Sagittarius and the mountains surrounding it. It is a rocky, inaccessible area, home to many rare animals. Suddenly, there is a signal. The needle begins to move. Through the deafening sound comes the unmistakable beep that they've been eagerly waiting for. The bear is somewhere down below. The signal comes from a peaceful valley hidden from prying eyes. There she is. Cub. No, two. Amazing. A truly exceptional mother. She's thin, careful. She doesn't let them out of her sight for a moment. Photographers and enthusiasts line up in a disciplined manner, their telescopes, binoculars and telephoto lenses pointing towards the bottom of the valley. They are intelligent animals and seem to have understood that the danger will not come from those who wait. At Devil's Pass, a location now famous throughout Europe as a hotspot for observing bears. Now winter is approaching. The larches grow yellower by the day, while the chamois descend to lower levels. Soon the bears will go into hibernation in their dens, and for a while, men will forget about them. There is still time for a loving moment between Mum and her now grown-up cubs. They try to suck some milk. The bear sits patiently, but only for a moment. The three go down into the clearing. They reach their favourite resting place and lie down all together, keeping each other warm. It is almost evening. A slight fog has risen, and every now and then it rains. There is something almost human about bears. They love to play and have fun, and even a branch can arouse their interest. Their curiosity enables them to learn everything about the woods and to find the most hidden and obscure sources of food. Soon the young will leave their mother for good and look for somewhere to hibernate among the rocks. She already has her soft, dry den with a bed of moss and dry leaves in an out-of-the-way place. She'll give birth during hibernation. It is March, and a snowstorm has suddenly engulfed the mountains of Abruzzo, taking everyone by surprise. A flock of thrushes struggles to survive, relying on a few berries. A fox goes in search of something to sink its teeth into. These animals are rarely in trouble. They always know how to survive. It was the last snowfall of the season. The intense rays of the sun now begin to divest the trees of their white covering. A goshawk has discovered something interesting. Usually this raptor is a proud bird hunter, but this time it is the carcass of a dead animal that has aroused its interest. There is still something to be nibbled at. A bear has taken advantage of the fine weather to take an exploratory walk and has left tracks in the fresh snow. It is in the heart of the Adamello chain, a mountain range just a short distance from Trento, where the front line of the Great War between Austria and Italy lay. From a historical point of view, this territory is the point of contact between nations that once fought one another. But for those who study fauna, it is an ecological corridor, a large green belt that allows the animals of the Balkans and Eastern Europe to colonize the Western Alps, including bears. These specimens are the avant-garde of the richest bear population in Europe, those of the Balkans and Carpathian Mountains, the great homeland of all European bears, where thousands still live in complete freedom. The snow melting in the mountains swells clear, oxygen-rich streams, home to thousands of mayfly that swarm around in perfect synchronization. They are prey for large graylings and trout, and are also proof of how pristine this region remains. The small lake of Tovel appears through the fir and beech trees. Here lies one of the largest and healthiest populations of Western European bears. Two bear cubs take advantage of the mild, early spring weather to explore their forest. They have just emerged from their den, are hungry and are looking for something to eat. They are now old enough to look after themselves. They could come across their mother, in whose territory they continue to live. She may even ignore them, but would not chase them away. They are her cubs, rather grown up now, but still her cubs. A fox and a raccoon dog have also arrived in the clearing. The latter is a funny animal that doesn't look at all like a relative of the wolf and therefore of the fox, as it is a strange hybrid between a raccoon and a wolverine. The raccoon dog is a carnivore. It hunts small prey and eats carrion, but it is not a danger to bear cubs. On the other hand, cubs are afraid of large male bears. A Ural owl calls out from the branches of a beech tree. It is one of the greatest nocturnal predators, a true lord of the forest. Its song sounds sinister, a series of notes in rapid succession. Then it breaks off abruptly. The fox, which was spying on the bear cub's movements, moves away rapidly. Scarface has arrived. He is an old male bear with a muzzle marked by a deep scar, a souvenir from a clash with another male. He is the cub's main enemy. He wants desperately to mate with the female bear, but can't until she stopped looking after her cubs. Eliminating them would speed things up for him. The cubs escape, and Scarface can now woo the female. Free from her maternal duties, she could now conceive more cubs. If the bear is the king of mammals, the capercaillie is the emperor of birds. Although it feeds on insects, worms, blueberries, strawberries and raspberries, if nothing else is available, it will make do with pine needles, which it can digest thanks to the particular bacterial flora that live in its gut. They have discovered that hazel twigs are good, perhaps not as tough as pine needles. These large birds are disappearing from the Alps because their territory is increasingly being invaded by men. Perhaps they won't be able to adapt to the changes in the environment as well as Europe's largest carnivore. The black woodpeckers are taking care of their brood, which is demanding food, approaching the nest dug out of the trunk of a large beech. They are the largest of the European woodpeckers, and their abandoned nests are used by night predators, the Tengmalm owl in particular. The black woodpecker, the Tengmalm owl and the capercaillie are demanding species that disappear when the wood is exploited and the environment affected. Fortunately, men have realised that the wealth of the forest consists not only of its timber, but also of the great variety of organisms that live in the shade of the trees. The lady's slipper is the largest European orchid and needs moisture, as do the spotted salamander and alpine frogs gathering in ponds to lay eggs. A ring ouzel takes a bath in a small puddle. It looks around as it does so, as this puddle is also frequented by other animals, not all of them harmless. It is cold 8 months of the year here, and there is little to eat. A big male moves through the woods. But for now he dedicates himself to his favourite activity, lifting stones and branches to see if there's something tasty underneath. Is storing food, because winter, snow, cold and food shortages are not far away. It has selected a large trunk that it is tearing apart little by little. It is wrapped in mosses and has been eaten away by insects and mushrooms. It is these insects that are the great carnivore's target. It uses its long, powerful claws to break the wood and reveal the tunnels that conceal the larvae and eggs of ants and wood-eating insects. A wood inhabited by bears can be recognized by tree trunks devastated by claws and teeth. A bird is following its actions with interest. A dunnock. Perhaps it could pinch an insect. The humid, foggy air is full of smells, some interesting. There could be a female in the area, but she is unlikely to surrender to his advances in this season on the threshold of autumn. Woodpecker could carry out the same task, but with greater grace. It is a demanding job that requires patience, but the bear is in no hurry. In fact, at one point, having lain down to look for something low down, it decides that it's time for a nap. It continues to keep its paw in almost affectionate contact with the large trunk. This bear has Slovenian origins. He must be the offspring of one of the bears donated to Italy by Slovenia to repopulate the mountains of Trentino, and hence the entire Alpine chain, from where the bear disappeared after centuries of persecution. It survived only in Italy, in this area of the Adamello-Brenta Massif in Trentino. But by 1990, the situation had become dramatic here too. There were only 2 specimens left. One, an old female with a limp and perhaps sterile, weighing about 40 kilos, who was coming to the end of her long life. Then there was a large male, weighing 150 kilos, who was blind in one eye. Thanks to infrared cameras, everything was known about them, but it was evident that since they could not breed, the death of these 2 specimens would mean the definitive disappearance of brown bears from the Alps. Thus, on the initiative of the World Wildlife Fund and the administrators of Trento, convinced that it was necessary to save an authentic living monument of the Alps, it was decided to release some bears caught in Slovenia into the Adamello-Brenta Natural Park. The Slovenian landscape is made up of a mosaic of vast, unspoilt natural environments, where woods alternate with grasslands full of lakes, with calm and richly populated waters. Small but ruthless hunting birds live here, like the red-backed shrike that go hunting for insects. They are migrants from Africa and hunt for crickets among the grass. When they find them, many put them to one side, hanging them on the barbed wire. Other birds have made their home in Slovenia, settling on the rooftops. White storks. These large migrants arrive every year from Africa after flying over the Bosphorus, an obligatory point of passage for birds that come and go between Africa and Eastern Europe. Sparrows also live in their large nests, eating their leftover food, but they're careful about going upstairs. You never know with some roommates, especially those with big beaks. Each of the 1,000 bears that live in the wild forests of Slovenia is a small economic asset. In this small Balkan nation, bears attract tourists from around the world who come here to photograph the creatures, but also to hunt them. Every year, a good number of specimens are struck down by hunters, mostly foreigners, who can only shoot at the bears indicated by the game wardens. In this great reserve in Slovenia, 50 kilometers from the border with Italy, where fir trees, pines and beeches form dense woods, humid and full of shrubs and mosses, the ideal habitat for large animals. Between 1999 and 2002, 3 males and 7 females aged 3 to 6 were released. In their country of origin, they were sentenced to be included in the cull, but at the last moment they were saved and tranquilized to be transported to Italy for the International Reintroduction Project. The bears soon began to reproduce. Many litters of cubs were born, and the population today numbers over 70 specimens. The two veteran bears, the only truly indigenous to the area, are probably dead. But the new Slovenian bears are once more the stars of this magnificent natural environment that extends into the wooded valleys of the Adamello Mountains. If they were able to cross the swirling waters of the Adige River, they would find a boundless world full of dens, water and food. Some have succeeded, but they are young, impulsive, restless males who have not settled down in the new areas. Only when a female moves across can we be certain that the bear population is expanding to the west. The bear, while being classified as a carnivore, eats a bit of everything: fruit, berries and grass, and if it has the chance, even the flesh of dead animals. And if they are not dead, it will soon take care of that. It can bring down a calf, a donkey, a goat or a sheep with a well-aimed paw. And it loves apples. Not a good thing in an area internationally famous for its apples. It goes crazy for any kind of honey, but the kind produced in the woods and mountain meadows is really good. This is definitely a good area. Which is not so good for people, many of whom would prefer to do without bears in these mountains, where even the memory of Europe's largest carnivore had been lost. Bears are not aggressive and are usually afraid of men. But some approach inhabited areas and regularly enter orchards, fields and chicken houses. They are then classified as problem bears, are given a number and a name, and end up on the blacklist. People have decided to make sure they can do no damage, so they capture or kill them. The bear Danidza died accidentally during an attempted capture. Bear KJ2 was shot down. Other specimens end up shut in wildlife areas. They are like the cartoon Yogi Bear, but too real to be left roaming free. It is a difficult life for the largest carnivore in Europe's forests, forced to carve out a living space in a vast and extended environment, but one that is continually invaded by tourists, mushroom and blueberry pickers, farmers and hikers. In these mountains, wild animals have coexisted with humans since ancient times. The shepherds could have probably done without their company, but today wolves, bears, deer, chamois and eagles have become a source of pride in this area of Italy. They have become the true entrepreneurs of the park's green economy because they attract a growing number of visitors from all over the world. This is an area of wilderness still inhabited by free animals, who every day and every night struggle to survive in accordance with the laws of nature, laws far more ancient than those written by men.